Hey, what's up, fellas? Dimitry Skopeliti here. I hope you hear me. Long time no see. I haven't done live stream in a while. Actually, I guess 1 year or something. So Inspiria Guitars live stream are back, and today we have, of course, a guest. And but before to start, I want to talk a little bit about what happened recently. Um, I have been all over the place playing, all over the world basically in the last year. So those who follow me on Facebook and YouTube, Instagram, and so on, they know what I'm talking about. So finally, I had the time to do this again, and this is a good time of the year. Summer is coming, and a lot of different new things are happening. So I hope you hear me. So I had some problems on Facebook and Instagram. So let me know if you can see me from Facebook, my Facebook profile. Since I had some problems playing the live stream in there and Instagram as well, but I guess Instagram is not happening at this time. So, anyways, here we are. So, yeah, I say we have a guest, a very good friend of mine, Inspiria Guitars artist, a badass guitar player. His name is Luey, Lewis Chisnarls, and I'm going to bring him on now.
Hey D, how are you, man?
Yeah, there we go. Good to see you, man. Thank you.
Good to
Thank you
see
very
you
much for
too.
doing this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's been a while since the latest time we actually met in person, which was probably NAM 2024, right?
It's I want to say it's been what maybe 2 NAMs ago.
One
20?
actually, one.
What?
One.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't make it last time, but I made it the one before, and then
Which
the one
was
before.
2024.
Yeah, and then I performed there. But when we first met was the NAM before that.
I think
want
it
to
was
say
actually.
it was 2023.
I think it was 2022.
Or maybe the
We
beginning.
met in 2022, and then we
Yep.
met again in 2024 because you played at Inspiria Guitars booth.
Right.
Which
was awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So how's life at this time? What did you do in the last year?
It's been busy. Again, just doing shows, of course, and working, and just teaching off and on, and just keeping busy, and of course, doing what I love to do is music, and writing material for this 7 string here, of course. So it's been good. Not complaining.
That's great. And maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself because I think some of the people and most of the people who follow Inspiria Guitars, they know who you are. Especially here, we have some other artists hanging around, and we have Johan here. Johan, please let me know. You say that you can hear on Facebook. Is it my Facebook profile? Because I had problems with that, or is it Inspiria Guitars Facebook page? Because that works, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit, Luey, a little bit about your background, your biography. Where you come from. I know you live in Texas, but I'm not sure you are from Texas. Are you?
Yeah, born and raised here in Texas, man. Houston, Texas. Been here my whole life, and started guitar seriously guitar probably about maybe 13 or 14 years old. And again, I'm 49, so I grew up with the 80s shred period where no internet, and you go to stores, you look at the Mike Varney Shrapnel Records showcase, and of course, you have everyone from Ingve and Cacophony with Jason Becker, Marty Friedman, of course, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, and shred players like that are pretty much what I grew up on. So I knew right away when I started. The first thing that I went to was, playing, scales instead of playing power chords. So it was, I don't know, like we learned different,
the other way around.
Yeah, so the objective there was, back then I wanted to play fast, and I didn't have no sense of coordination and stuff like that. And, I was blessed to have met, extraordinary musicians at the time. And, I was there, of course, me, beginning guitar, and then me being, a skater back then, I just happened to be skating around areas. And, my older brother was in a metal band, a vocalist. And, he told me about an extraordinary guitar player. His name was Edward, and the guy was just a shredder. And I remember skating around that area and just hearing him practice one time, and then from there, rest was
Wow.
history.
Mm.
One of my first teachers, of course, that sat there and said, "Hey, you know what? I don't know if I'll teach you because you're going to waste my time." So in that way, it's like, you know, pushing, pushing in a way, and just wrote a simple C major scale, right? And just wrote it down on like on tab on a piece of paper and said, "Hey, take this home and come back next Friday. And if you don't have it, then you're wasting my time." So I went home, folded that little piece of paper up, put it in my pocket, and skated on home, got my guitar, and just started practicing it. And then from there, just was a good drive. So yeah,
Hmm.
it was
So,
good.
so basically, you have some kind of academic studies in your background. I mean, you got some lessons. You studied music.
Yeah, yeah. My first couple of years when I went to college, you know, uh, that was one of the things. I wanted to, you know, expand. Of course, being a guitar player, and that opened my mind to like a lot of jazz music, a lot of improv, a lot of these fusion
Nice.
players. Al Di Meola, Frank Gambale,
Wow.
Holsworth, those guys there. And really zeroed in. Like I remember the music teacher, his name was Mr. Gleason. He's like, yeah, I can see you're doing these metal licks and everything, but hey, here's some cassettes. Go home and listen to them. Chick Corea,
Chick
well,
Corea. Mm.
Frank Gambale, but I'm listening to all that. John McLaughlin, Joe Pass, Wes Montgomery, and
Hmm.
just how they do those little passing tones and stuff. And it was like, wow, it's a whole new universe in that sense,
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know.
it's very important to. I think it's very important to try to learn different languages in a way. Even though you have your own idea about your music and you follow a path which might be. We are all rock guitar players and stuff like that, but it's important to kind of incorporate other elements from other kind of music because they just enrich your vocabulary, especially if you play instrumental music. Because
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you are the guitar player in a band and you have a vocalist and all this, you have your time for the solo. But if you are an instrumentalist, then you need to do the whole thing. So you need to be able to understand the dynamic of the song. You need to understand which scale to use in according to the chords you have and all this. And I think it's for me has been actually important to study music theory. Actually, I see that some people manage without. But, we're all different. We all have different capabilities in a way, when it comes to ear training and all this, so we develop in a different way. But for me, it was important, it opened a completely different world, like you say. Looks like we have a similar background, when it comes to what we listen to and the way we develop our style.
Right. It was
Yeah.
a good experience, and don't get me wrong. It's just like it's been a while since we did like some ensemble performances, and then you haven't reading chord charts and stuff like that. For me, it's gonna probably be like riding a bike after so many years. I understand the concept, but you retain some information and you lose it just because it's been a while since I did any jazz improv, uh, or but I got to get back on it again, of course. And but it was good to have that training, and again to have the teachers like, hey, look, you got to be on it, man, to push you. And
Hmm.
that was one of the things mentioning. One of my first teachers was really really a heavy theory dude. He was like, name me the notes on the guitar. You have to learn how to sight read. And he came from he was in high school band, and then he got into guitar and piano and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it
Sight read is difficult for guitar players. Guitar players are not good sight readers usually, which is the opposite of keyboard players and pianists. But
yeah,
I guess in a way it's because of the way the instrument is. You can play the same thing in different positions, and we tend to read tabs because we are very influenced by the sound of the instrument in a way. I mean, if you play the same notes in different parts of the fretboard, it in a way it sounds in a different way.
yeah, yeah.
So sometimes the riff needs to be played just that way in order to sound in that particular way. I
To
cannot
capture that.
really, yeah. Let's say I always make the example of Enter Sandman. I don't think Enter Sandman or Sad But True or Metallic, they sound the same if you play it in different positions. They would just sound weird, I think. So the sound is very important, and the tone is a very important part of what we do, I think, in our instrument. Uh, yeah, maybe you want to play a song for us. I know that you have been playing a little bit of instrumental music recently, and you are preparing some gigs. So,
Yes.
so maybe you want to play something for us, and then maybe talk a little bit about what you're doing those days.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. This one's mentioned. It's called Phase One, and let's
Yeah.
just do a quick sound check here. I guess you could say it's my first instrumental.
Okay.
But
Okay.
hopefully, yeah, the sound.
Okay. So I leave you alone on stage. There we go.
Okay.
Phase one. Sorry, that was the opposite way around. Hold on 1 second. Uh,
All right. I think we lost my speaker connection. One moment, D. My apologies, man. Okay, there we go.
Awesome. Great job, man.
Sorry for for the technical difficulties. It looks like the Bluetooth lost connection, and then like
I,
the mid thing, it's like, oh crap, they can't see the guitar. They can only see me playing. But hopefully, you cut the tail end of that.
yeah, I mean, I'm used that with live stream. It's a completely different level when it comes to stuff that happen. Like shit happens live usually, but we are used because we played in a band for many years, and we know how to face all the problems. But for me, live stream is still like a big mystery. That's one of the reasons why I keep doing this, to find out how to improve it. So,
Amen.
but
Yeah.
the song is great. I remember the song from NAM 2024. When you were there at the booth and you played that. So, are you working on some other music for your solo instrumental album or something? Those
Most
days.
definite. Yeah, most definite. I mean, we have several riffs and stuff on recordings, as I mentioned before. So there's going to be more of it. I promise you that, and it's going to be fun. Again, this is like my first instrumental song, and it's just, I'm excited for it. So it's pushing me obviously to do more instrumental stuff, and especially with the 7 string here, like I mentioned before, I love the 6 string. This is actually my first 7 string that I'm actually breaking in with, but that's one of the things, and you may know as a musician, you always want to get out of a comfort zone, you know, just to improve your playing and what you
Of
mentioned
course.
before, open up like your vocabulary, like as
Yeah,
far
and
as
to
the
make
voice
and to,
styles.
to make it more exciting as well. If
Make
you
it.
have challenge, if you don't have challenges, and then you tend to practice less, and I think it's very important to just push the envelope day by day. That's to make
Oh,
it more interesting. And but
yeah.
you were saying we have, so probably you have a band, a solo band, like you have other instrumentalists that play with you, that write music with you, or how does it work usually?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. I'm blessed to have those members. Uh, Actually, we did another promo, what Witness to the Fallen. So that's the band. And showcased in that stream, of course, Angel Perez and Charlie Cuevas, and that is going to be who I write with and so forth. And of course, I have other uh, uh, people who help me piece the songs together. Shout out to Kareem at Magic Studios for making the videos happen. And great guy. Him and his staff. They're awesome. They're awesome dudes, man. And I can't say much enough about who I'm around, the musicians who I'm around, the influence the people I'm around, and it's been great. So it's gonna be all right, man. But to answer your question, there is new music. There is new
That's good.
music, and
And what about the lineup? Is you have two guitar players, one guitar player, you have keyboard players. How does it work usually?
funny, yeah, funny you should mention that because you know uh, we have the band, as I mentioned before, Witness of the Fallen, and I'm the only guitar player. We had 2 guitar players in the past, but I'm the only guitar player right now. And so for the solo stuff with the 7 string, um, I'm thinking about adding another rhythm player, and funny you should mention that, a keyboard player, to
Okay.
make everything sound full. Nothing against a single guitar player, because the majority of the bands I was with, I was always the single guitar player, and I've been in bands with 2 guitar players as well. But with this one, it's once we do a good live performance, they'll kind of gauge it out. But there's nothing wrong to have that fullness. Um, just seeing heroes, even like Steve Vai, I think he has a guitar player. I think I'm not sure who he has now, but I think he had Tony McAlpine playing both
He
keyboard
used to.
and
Yeah, he
yeah,
used to. Now actually, the latest time I saw him, he didn't have a keyboard player. Uh, he still had the second guitar player with him.
yeah. I think I
And
remember.
but then there was a period he had the violinist, two violinists actually. So it depends, they always change the lineup according to the material, I guess. But
Yeah,
so yeah, I mean, keyboard player. A lot of people usually use backing tracks. It's kind of controversial sometimes with the backing tracks because and I think the truth is in the middle. I think if you have a keyboard player, a guitar player, I mean two guitar players and all this, you can do the show in a way is just gets more entertaining because you can actually use your experience as a performer and actually improvise on stage and change the structure of the song, take some breaks, talk to the crowd and all this with the backing track. And instead,
Hmm.
everything is super tight. And I think that playing with backing track, I don't consider that as cheating or whatever. Actually, it's pretty difficult because everybody need to stick at the click. So you need to be a very
Exactly.
experienced musician to be able to do that. Some people they just talk about this, but they don't know how it is. So you need to be very skilled to play with backing tracks. But
Right.
it's a completely different way of doing that. I mean, probably the show is going to be more tight with click and backing tracks and all this, but more enjoyable if you have a full band following you.
Yeah, most
Uh,
definitely. I mean, just it would make everything sound full, and what you mentioned before, they got the whatever you use, another guitar player, you have that advantage of harmonies if you got harmonies, and
yeah.
what you said, samples here and there. That's exciting, But yeah, as I mentioned, there's nothing wrong with that. And again, too, like I said, yeah, it's good to have that click thing, I think it's the best of both worlds. You're out there free jamming, but you just want to have some fun, let it just feedback and everything, but go back to the click, and I guess whatever I'm saying makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but then
full
it
band is
depends,
good.
For
Yeah,
me, it's important to work with the click because usually I write the songs by myself. So and then
right.
I figured out how to bring it on stage, and according to the situation. And
Sure.
yeah, so you told me before when we were kind of doing some sound check and stuff that you are working on some gigs coming up for with your bands. Maybe you want to talk about this?
Yeah, sure. We have a show coming up. We'll have to learn like about 15 songs, and this is by August 2nd. And so, I got my work cut out. It's for a cover band, but we're doing like some old school metal, like Maiden, old Ozzy, Randy Rhoads era. There's a Steve Vai song in there, and old
Cool.
Judas Priest and Sabbath, solo. Right, well, Ronnie James Dio, but we do Sabbath era Dio as well. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be challenging, but it's like one of those where you got some of those songs in there, and mostly all of them, and then some old school Kiss as well. They're fun to play. They're going to be fun to learn, of course, but at the same time, you know, you have to
So
get them down.
yeah, of course. What is your process to learn and memorize songs? I mean, do you have sessions with the band, or you just practice by yourself and then you show up maybe at the sound check or maybe some days before just for a short rehearsal?
Yeah, definitely not show up on sound check, but it's like one of those where you do your homework,
I mean,
and
because
then
the music is
yeah, like
complicated. That's why I'm asking. I mean, sometimes I actually
oh, for
have
sure.
no other way than just show up at the sound check and play. But if you have the chance to, of course, to rehearse with the band, that would be the best.
Oh, of course, yeah. So I think like
Yeah.
the show's in August, but I think maybe 2 weeks before that show coming up, that's when we would get together as a band to make sure everything's tight. I'm working with another guitar player, and make sure the harmonies are tight and so forth. But yeah, maybe a couple of weeks before the show, you do your homework right before the show, a few weeks as I mentioned, and then make sure everything is tight, and then you're ready to go. And then after August, we have another show. I have another show on, I want to say September 12th. It's going to be with my original band, Witness of the Fallen. And I'm looking forward to it because, I'm going to incorporate some instrumental stuff along with
So
it.
so it's gonna be a solo thing, instrumental music.
Instrumental music. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's going to
Cool.
be great. And then uh, I'm in a tribute band, a Kill Switch Engage tribute band.
Oh yeah, yeah. I read about it. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to play that same night too. So it's going to be a busy night. But again, I can't say enough about how, grateful and blessed I am to be surrounded by great musicians, that push you,
What, what, it- yeah, of course. What is your the tuning you use on the sound string?
This year is everything. It's a half step down.
Okay, B
So
flat.
Yeah. Yep. B flat. And sorry about that. So yeah, I was talking about this with a buddy of mine the other day. There's something about, I know we all tune down. Some songs for Witness of the Fallen, we're in a drop B,
Mm-hmm.
but for this one, everything is, a half step down from standard. But there's something about that E flat that just, I don't know.
I mean, in general, the B flat. I used to have the same tuning when I was playing the 7th string with my band, and yeah, there is something about the B flat, and it's not just the case because a lot of bands in the 90s they had that tuning. Meshuggah, they used to be tuned in B flat, and I think Carcass they used as well in the 90s. A lot of people use that tuning. So and there is another. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, excuse me, but now I remember it's a 7th. So yeah, I'm thinking standard 6th string, but yeah, there's that one extra string. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're saying B flat. I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, well, you got a 7, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I completely understand because I play 8th string guitar and I don't play only the 8. Sometimes I switch. So yeah, it's I'm 45 years old. At this age, it's kind of complicated. To
Well,
find.
I need to ask you, what you primarily play is 8th string. Is it safe for me to say, or it's a mixture between 7 and 8?
Well, basically, I try to play the 8th string the more I can because I know that if for some periods I play a 6th string or a 7th string, then it would be harder to switch again to the 8th string. And I think now there is nothing easy and nothing difficult in playing the guitar, but I believe that playing the 8th string guitar is physically challenging, you know, when it comes to strength and when it comes to stretch and stuff like that.
Man, I
And
can
when I
imagine.
when
Uh,
I go back to the 6th string, I feel it gets easier. Even though, as I said before, there is nothing very easy about and nothing very difficult about playing the guitar. But I try to play the 8th string, so in order to keep my chops, in shape.
right.
Otherwise, yeah. And here we have a comment which is kind of funny because Past and Secret is an artist of ours. His name is Johan de la Salle, and he plays a 7th string, exactly the same guitar that you use, and he plays
Awesome.
in drop G.
Whoa.
So drop G, Johan, please tell me all the notes of the drop G because in this moment I have to think too much. Let me see. Drop G should be G, D, uh, G, D, G, C, F, A, and D. Is it correct? If it's not, I completely understand. It's
What gauge strings is he using as well? I'm
Yeah,
curious to know
that's
that.
actually a good point. And I was about to ask you, what strings do you use?
Ernie Ball, 10 through 56.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
a good medium.
yeah.
It's served me well, and I usually after I play, of course, a good habit is to clean the strings and stuff. But it's just, yeah, it's a good medium. It's not too much, too heavy, but at the same time, it's not light where it just sounds like a flat tire.
I
So
think it's still okay. I mean, I would use 58 on the bass probably, but I think it's smart to use 10 on the highest string with that
depending,
turn.
yeah, depending on the tuning as well. If you're gonna drop all the way down, like, yeah, you want to use a heavier gauge, of course.
Yeah,
Um,
and Airnable, you said yes. Cool. And
yeah,
yeah, what is your setup when it comes to, let's say you're gonna play those gigs now in some weeks? What are you gonna use, like a head and cab or modulars, or maybe you can describe your rig, your
yeah,
actual rig now?
uh, yeah. It's like right in back of me, but I'm gonna keep it. I have my equipment I used to use was a Mesa Boogie 412 cab, but I still have it and it sounds great. But as you mentioned before, the older you get, you kind of want to keep everything compact. But no, I'm not using any amp modelers or anything like that, not as of now. But I'm not sure if you see this, but here's my setup. Ingo Powerball.
Powerball, yeah.
Power
Cool.
2. Yeah, then I have my pedals, and it's great sounding, man. Let me just kind of get out of the way here.
And the cab is a Mesa, and it's
Mesa.
a 2x10?
212
212. Okay.
Yeah, so it does the job, and I've took it out, to already a good handful of shows, and it's great. Again, thanks to Kareem Magic Studios here in Houston, Texas, for introducing me to this amp, and it's I can't say much anything bad about it. It has a good tone and everything. I could probably even without even the pedal board, I could probably turn that channel 3, which I'm on right now, that gain all the way, and it'll still have that fullness,
Yeah.
And, yeah. So, but
yeah.
yeah.
What about the pedals? What are you using? I can see a MIDI controller there. Is that possible?
Yeah. So yeah, here's pretty much the full switch. Of course, I have the tube screamer, more like the gas pedal.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I got my Van Halen flanger. I keep it simple. I got 2 delays right here. I just love delay, and so I got a Boss DD7, the MXR carbon copy, which I'm using now. It just sounds great, But I keep it simple, man. And the Morty Wall, the Bad Horsey.
Oh wow! So you have 2?
No, just one.
Just one. Okay. Yeah, I have the same. I have the same. It's the Bad Horsey. The Bad Horsey,
right.
Bad Horsey 2 or the 1?
This is the 2 actually.
Yeah. It's the one with the contour.
Yeah.
And I have the same. It's amazing. It sounds great. It's very practical, and it's very solid. It's great.
You don't have to hit that, you know what I mean?
It was a game changer because you could actually play just tap on the wah during a riff or whatever, So it's
yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is my live setup and my at-home practice setup. But again, I got to practice a certain day that a certain time of the day. I can't practice late at night and have this thing blasted, of course. But I feed these to the loop. All this stuff. I got a picture, the MXR, what some of them call Van Halen 1 in a box. It's the Phase 90, and I feed all these to the loop, and then I have these to the front, and it serves me well. I love it.
What about in the studio? Do you use the same rig or use plugins, or how do you do it?
In the studio, it's actually the same rig. I record again at Magic Studios, and we mic up the cab and feed it dry for the rhythms, and then later on, we would then add effects if needed. But studio wise, it's to the amp, it's to the head.
Cool. And how many mics do you use?
That I want to say 2. I want to say 2, but that's more of a Kareem question, since I go and record with at Magic Studio.
Yeah, because it makes perfect sense. The thing is that of course you have your people that you trust, so you let them handle you let them handle the pre-production, the mix, and all this. So I think it's important to have your own people you work with, so you don't need to question every single phase of the recording, so you can keep focusing on making music instead, But I was just wondering because when I used to, I believe it or not, I don't mic amps anymore. I still love amps. I use more amps when I just practice or when I teach, because I still do some teaching.
Right.
But when I used to mic the cab, at least I was using 2. One really standard SM57 and a condenser microphone, maybe a little bit far away from the amp to get some room and all this.
Okay.
But those days I use a lot of plugins instead and modelers. But in the studio, mostly plugins and sometimes the Kemper, the German Kemper.
Right.
And that is still, I think, the best modeler around. So.
I was about to ask you that. You just read my mind. I was going to ask you, what in your opinion, when it comes to modelers is the best one in your, what you work
I
with?
I mean, I think live. I don't use the camper live because my camper is in the rack, and I don't like to bring it around. Also, you need to have a foot controller like a MIDI pedal board and whatever. So I use small modelers like the one that you use at NAM, the Hot Tone Ampere I have here is the one that I played the first song with, and which sounds great. And but in the studio, I have my camper there with my profiles that I did by myself, which makes all the difference in the world, I think, because if you do your settings, I mean your profile with your settings, your amps, your microphones, and all these, you can really dig your tone out, the one that you usually use, instead of just taking preset and adapt that to your playing, if you know what I mean.
When you do, what do you, whenever you perform live, right? What do you, if this makes sense, because I'm not really knowledgeable when it comes to modelers, but what do you model your amp after? Is it a certain one, like a Mesa or a Marshall, or,
Well, it's, believe it or not, it's almost always a 5150.
Really?
And that is, of course, I mean, I grew up with 5150.
I love those amps. I actually own one. Yeah.
I don't own that anymore. I sold that. I had the 5150, the first one. And then I sold that because I had to buy other stuff back in the day. And I was endorsed by PV, so they started to send me some amps. I was like, okay, I don't need to have 1,000 amps, which is, of course, wrong. But I sold that, and actually at that time I sold it for a high price. But then after I bought everything, and my economy kind of got fixed and all this, I was like, I called back the guy and I was like, hey, dude, can you sell that back to me? But he didn't accept it because, and I know why. He was interested in buying that amp at all cost because he knew the way it was sounding. It was a 5150, but for some reason, don't ask me why, that particular one was sounding amazing.
Magic, it has some mojo, huh?
So I don't know. Maybe along the years I used the right tubes. I go figure it out. I don't know anything about electronic. But the only regret I have is that I didn't have a camper at that time to profile it, so I could have it in my camper for forever. But usually I use 5150, and as you do, I usually use tube screamer in front. That's my rhythm and my solo channel, like a lead channel. On the lead channel, I might have a little bit more gain and a little bit more high frequencies, and of course delay and reverb, and that's it. And then I have a clean. The clean, instead, I go the opposite way. I usually use a Fender Twin. I love the crystal clear clean of the Fender amps. Even though I have also one of the presets that I use is also like something in between, some kind of crunch that I like to use sometimes.
Yeah, 5150s, in my opinion, they're good at the crunch part and everything. I don't think they're really popular when it comes to the clean channel,
They basically don't have a clean channel. But honestly, the EVH, it's and of course EVH is produced by Fender, so that makes sense. They have clean.
Yeah.
I don't remember. The clean was not particularly great, but it was more cleaner than the original 5150, which was basically the crunch channel, basically. If you kept that with like 0.5 gain, might sound a little bit clean, but it was still kind of dark in a way. It was not exactly clean up, of course.
Now, did you have the 5150 blocker signature? Just out of curiosity.
The one with the Van Halen signature. So probably it was the second edition. Yeah, probably it was the second one. Yeah. It was right before they made 5152.
Wow. Yeah.
Which was probably 3 channels or something like that. Now it's so long time ago that I don't remember. But I always go back to that sound. All my favorite albums I recorded with that sound. I made my own style over that amp. So every time every time a company sent me a modeler, I had to make to set up a sound 5150 tube screamer, and that's it.
Oh,
Very,
yeah.
very, very easy stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So,
Nice.
and I was thinking, I wrote some stuff here, but I was thinking to ask you, what do you think about for people at home, a young guitar player and all this, as me and you, we know it's the most important thing when you play the guitar is to be able to um, build your own tone in a way, like be able to evolve and how can we say develop your own tone, and I think sometimes there is some kind of misunderstanding between sound and tone. I don't know what you think about it. I think that the tone is something more personal, that it's a bit different from the sound. It depends on the playing, of course, but then it
Right.
depends on the gear and all this. The tone instead is strictly related to the way you play and the touch and the dynamic and all this. What do you think about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that in my opinion, I think that comes with discipline to have that tone, I guess if this answers your question or relates to it, when you first picked up the guitar, you had everything at 10, right? You had the overdrive at 10 and all that other stuff, and you were playing and everything just kind of just blasted out, thinking, okay, cool. As you get older, you start to realize that you don't need as much gain, turn the gain down so that way you could have that clarification of the tone, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hear those notes and its clarity, You don't have to have that overdrive all the way jacked up. It's going to sound just, and also too, for me, I started just kind of keeping my finger on that volume or that knob to thin out the tone at certain parts of songs. And, kind of like a car, you give it the gas, you shift gears, and between the neck and the bridge pickup and all that stuff comes into play. But, yeah, that part where you're saying it depends on the player too. Yeah, any guitar player would pick up. Each guitar player could pick up the same guitar, but they're going to sound like them, And yeah, with tone, I think that comes in with time, discipline and all that. But yeah, most definite. Again, if this answers your question on tone versus you said sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely want to start the basis with a good sound, like the canvas. But then when it comes to your tone, that's when you start getting the paintbrush and you start making your own illustrations, adding color here and there, So
Yeah, it's very interesting that you're talking about the gain. Like when it comes to gain, less is more, of course, because you want to be able to let people understand the way you play and the way you play one single note, So, and all these distortions sometimes is just covering basically your touch as a guitar player, and we all play guitar in a different way, And
right, yeah,
so I think it's the most important thing for a guitar player. I have some students that ask me, how do I develop a tone in a way that people know that it's me playing. It depends. Yeah, it's in a way the tone is important, and then there is a lot of other things like the style, the composition wise, and all this. All those things are a part of your luggage as a guitar player, as a musician in general. So
yeah. I mean, good
uh,
examples. I mean, you take Yngwie Malmsteen or Carlos Santana. You know, I mean,
yeah,
Santana could play one note. It's him. you
yeah.
know, one note. Yngwie, he's just Yngwie.
Yeah, and the same is with Ingrid. I mean, you can hear the guy playing, and you can hear when it's the guy playing, when it's somebody imitating him, and all this. A typical example is Generation X, the tour that they did with all guitar players.
Right,
I
right,
listen.
right.
I didn't watch the DVD. I don't know if there is a DVD or whatever, but I listened to the show, and I could actually hear every single person playing. Okay, this is Zach Wild. This is Tosin Abasi or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah.
and I tend to talk to my students and tell them that the most important, because sometimes they just focus on the technique, you know, and they want to be faster, and want to be like the new shredder and all this. But the most important thing is, of course, the style that you have, you know, that you develop, as you said, with the years. It takes a lot of time. You know?
And of course,
And
too, you know, you think about it, you know, we were, well, I can't so much speak for you, but I could speak for me. You know, when I was first started again, I wanted to play fast and, you know, forget about tone. I just want people to hear me play fast, you know, and all reckless stuff. But again, when you get older, you're like, oh, you know, kind of chill on the game, you know, and play, go more focused on rhythm, go on the chords, you know, make people nod their heads. That'll let you know that they're getting into it, you know, rather than just looking at you like, what's he doing?
and do you say you do some teaching sometimes?
Yeah, every now and then. And which is fun too, you know, and whenever you teach, of course, you being a teacher, it disciplines you more to really look
Yeah,
at what you're teaching,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Whenever we do a scale, sometimes we're on autopilot and we just play it
Yeah,
autopilot.
and
And
another thing is, of course, practice what you preach in a way, you know, which
pretty much.
I, which because sometimes I tend to be kind of strict, and then I'm like, all right, I was pretty strict with this kid, but am I strict to myself the same way, you know? So I try to follow the rules that I establish as a teacher, which is it's interesting in a way, you know. It was, you know, everything comes with age, I guess. But I mean, my aim was not very to be. I mean, as far as I remember, to be a fast guitar player was more in the beginning to be able to be in a band, you know, and
Right.
play gigs and go on tour and all these kind of things. Actually, I tend to play slow because I don't know. I like more playing slow. I like guitar players like David Gilmour, you know, Jimi Hendrix, and not those kind of guys. But I also like shredders, you know, like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and all this. They have it all. They have the you
Yeah.
know the tone. They have the technique and all this. You know, which is something that you get with a lot of discipline during the years.
Yeah.
And
Most definitely.
yeah, so do you happen to produce other bands like
Uh, no, I'm sorry.
yeah, like a produce, not necessarily being the sound engineer, just like produce music for other people or stuff like that. Maybe
Oh, do you
for
mean,
the band, maybe for some bands that you play with, sometimes you write music,
or
or
like studio work or
yeah,
studio
or
guy?
you, yeah, let's say studio work, or even like you know, composing music for other bands. You know, maybe you get invited to join a project, and then afterwards you start writing music, and you are coordinating the writing process, stuff like that.
Um, the only thing I really came close to is doing studio work, you know, with various bands, you know, different types of music where I coordinated solos for them, but nothing really like to write whole songs with them and so forth. Not yet, but you know, they would give me an outline of a song, you know, and I would go in and say, okay, well, they hear their vision of what they want for a particular solo or what they're hearing in their head. I'll go in there and say, okay, is this, and then they would give me the freedom to be like, okay, during this section here, you could play a rhythm that goes with the song and use your imagination. It doesn't strictly need to be what we write on this area of the solo, you know, kind of like if I'm correct here, what Eddie Van Halen did in Beat It, whenever he
Oh,
did
yeah.
that section, I think he redid like the rhythm behind it. I could be wrong, but from what I remember, I think you know he he redid the rhythm and you know uh, did it his way. And after the rhythm to that song, it was back to the normal song. You know.
But actually, I heard the story that he didn't record the rhythm. He recorded the solo of "Beat It," and the rhythm was the Steve Lukather of Totem.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, he recorded the solo, but I think he rearranged it too. But again, I could be wrong on that, you know, because I know you are right. Lukather did, if I'm correct, Lukather did recommend him to jump into
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But I because I saw the interview of Lukather, he said everybody think that Eddie played those. but instead it was me playing that, and Eddie played the solo. But the solo is amazing. So it's that is my favorite part of the song. So and
Right, right.
I'm not even sure what kind of scale he was playing there, and I don't think he even knew in a way. But it sounds amazing, you know. It's just like it sounds just like Van Halen, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Probably in there just smoking, took a few drags of the cigarette. Hey,
exactly.
roll it, and then yeah, go from
Now,
there.
what is your favorite scale that you
Ooh.
like playing the guitar? Is there a favorite one, like a mode or something that usually when you sit down and you write something, is the first thing that comes up, or you know?
Um, like maybe a harmonic minor for some reason. I
All right,
noticed whenever,
I was thinking about it.
you know, uh, that's yeah, a default, and then just go from there. One of the first ones I just go to at a default, man.
Yeah, me too, me too. It's because of it sounds kind of spicy in a way, you know. So
Yeah, and just at a default again, like Paul Gilbert strings. He does a lot of those little arpeggio string skipper type of things, and you know, Petrucci on the fifth,
mhm.
stuff like that. I'm a bit nervous right now, but
You don't need to. You don't need to. But
you know. No, I'm sorry.
your favorite technique, if you have one.
Oh, huge. I am a Satriani and Vai. Those growing up. Those were the two main guys. But technique, you know, little legato here and there. I usually go to the tapping, the chords going up in the eighth. Look at there with the string, like you mentioned. Look at there, that string bending, and again, Jakey Lee,
Mm-hmm.
ex-Aussie guitar player, huge influence. Warren D. Martini,
Yeah.
Rat. Those are the guys, man. I could go on and name a whole bunch, but
And
you know,
do you think it was kind of challenging to adapt your technique to the seven string when you switched,
um,
or how did you see the instrument? Like I can tell you this: when I started playing the seven string, which was many years ago, was probably 2000, 25 years ago.
right,
You know, I took the wrong way, which was probably seeing like a six string with the lower string in the bottom. I mean,
yeah,
up here. And instead, when I switched from the seven string to the A string, I started thinking about the A string like a different instrument, and I
okay,
started to practice all the scales like you do on the six string, but on the A string, like properly from the root. And that took me more time. Like it took me probably 1.5 years to get used to the A string before being able, or at least before challenging myself playing gigs and recording and stuff like that. Instead,
right.
with on the seven string, my jump was instant. Like from one, literally, I got the seven string, and day after I was playing a gig. You know, and I was still like,
Wow.
okay, this is my sixth string with the lower seventh. You know, but I was pretty young, so I didn't really think so much around that. What is your experience when you basically switched from the sixth string to the seventh? Did it take a little bit of time to be able to adapt? Do you feel that there something is something is different with the fingering and the fretting hand and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, D. When I first got this guitar, when it first shipped to me, I played seven string before, but to sit there and just for a few hours just get adapted to it, it did freak me out. Like, holy crap, I'm not playing the six string. I got that one extra string now, and yeah, mentally it does do a number on you. I'm not meaning that in a bad way, but you're like, okay, just you look at it, it's just one string more. It's more strings. The fretboard's wider, and you got to get adjusted to that. But it wasn't one of those where it was a freak out adjustment where like, oh shit, I gotta, I really got, it was easy, but there was some that, like, oh crap, there's that extra string and it kind of messes with you still. well, messes with me still, but
Yeah, but
nothing I.
I actually agree with you because I think I was already playing solos and stuff like that, even though I was kind of young at the time. But it was not that challenging. Like it was instead switching from the 7 to the 8. In the beginning, was very confusing. I mean, it's a very wide neck, and I think it's kind of difficult to see the guitar from up here. So it's more like that you feel the A string in a way instead of
Yeah,
just
yeah,
seeing exactly where you're going to play because, or at least that's a personal thing. It's kind of difficult for me to really see where I am. So it's easier to just don't think and feel the instrument and play in a way. And yeah, I think it's the challenge with the 7 and 8 is always to be able to mute strings because you always have those two extra strings that they might be making some extra sounds in the background and you don't want to have it. You want to be as clean as you can, right?
yeah. That's the disciplines we were mentioning earlier about that tone. You
Yeah.
want to, if you got to adjust your volume knob, your tone knob. I'm more of a volume knob guy, man. To get it right at that perfect where it's not less gainy or it's not too gainy. It's just right. And
Yeah, I do
what you
I do the
mentioned,
same. I do the
yeah,
same, but I now recently in the last couple of years I have used the volume pedal, which basically is acting same as the knob of the guitar. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and I all the presets that I did also with the modelers, they actually have the volume pedal connected to the gain of the amp. So
Okay,
basically has a similar behavior as the volume of the guitar. I guess the volume of the guitar. I used to use that more, but I have the feeling that the less you use the volume, the better it is because are those parts of the guitar that they might get damaged pretty early, together with the input jack and all that. I don't know if everybody have. All my students they come to me and they have all those problems, And I remember back in the day it was the same with me. So the less I use that, I use the pedal and that's it. Just leave the guitar the way it is.
yeah. That's a I had guitars even in the past where when I'm constantly playing, I'm just with that switch, just constantly doing this, and a couple of times it gave out,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
but it's fun though. I mean, again, I compare it like driving a car. You give it the gas, and slow it down a bit and touch it up. It's
Yeah,
fun stuff.
it's the same example I did with the students some days ago because I when I was taking care of the band practice,
Right?
and that's it's a nightmare with the young people and all this. And I was like, you need to use your volume pedal. It's exactly like driving the car, where you need to play has to go down like this, or you find the speed, and then when you stop, you just do it like this. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for us to communicate and on this. Uh,
Exactly.
are we going to improvise something? What do you think? We can try.
Let's try. Yeah, I'm down.
All right. Let me play some chords for you. Open timing, so we don't have because we have a delay, of course, so it's very difficult to play together on a bit. But if we do something with open timing, I think it's going to be all right. Let's do something in E minor. Of course, my E minor.
All right. Here.
Do you hear me?
Yeah. I'm gonna turn you down a bit.
Awesome. We managed.
Awesome.
All right. Has been a pleasure, man. And I look forward to meet you probably at NAM next year,
Yeah,
or at
yeah,
least like what, 6 months, something like that.
yeah. 6 months to 6 months, but 6 months to 6 months.
Yeah.
It's far away, but it's close by, man. And
Yeah.
again, my apologies for not making it last January.
No problem, man. We have all the time in the world. So I will wait for you at our booth, and then we're going to arrange some performances and all this as we usually do. So I really can't wait to make it happen.
Yeah, not a problem, D. Not a problem. Like again, it's good to catch up, man. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be on the live stream. And
Thank you, thank you very much that you showed up and you showed interest, and for the commitment that you have with Inspiria Guitars. I truly appreciate that.
Dude, most definite,
All right.
most definite. It's been a pleasure, man.
All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up because we hit almost like 1.5 hours.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Man, time flew, dude.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody, and I see you guys soon on those pages here. All right. Cheers.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Thank you, brother.